Hey, I'm Guy.
I'm John.
This is our YouTube channel. Subscribe to it and give this video a like.
Also, check out our podcast below in the description. Subscribe as well.
Recording this video as several reports have indicated that it's believed that Jalen Hurd tore his ACL in 49ers practice. We first heard about it when a listener hit us up in our DMs.
Yes, and I think it was reported on Sunday that he limped off the practice field with a foot. By the end of the night, we in our DM said it was an ACL. By the morning, Guy, I woke up and saw that the 49ers were signing Jaron Brown, former Cardinal wide receiver. I think he's been with the Ravens. To me, I immediately thought our DM was right, because they would not have signed a wide receiver if at minimum the injury wasn't serious. And then I think I saw a quote from Kyle Shanahan. He would be surprised if it was not the ACL. So I think it's not ideal, not good, and bye-bye Jalen Hurd 2020 season.
Yeah, we already said bye-bye to his 2019. We've already said bye-bye to, a month of Deebo Samuel with a foot injury. Said bye-bye to Emmanuel Sanders. Now, I don't know how much Jalen Hurd, if healthy, was really going to contribute, but you can't deny that this has not been off to an ideal start for the 49ers receiving corps here this 2020 season.
I think he was a body guy that they did not have. And really the type player that the 49ers I don't remember having, like a 6'4 wide receiver. I mean, you and I have walked by him at practice last year before he was even practicing because he was hurt, remember, when they drafted him. This was not your 69th or 68th, normal third-round pick in the sense that it was a pick in the 90s. They drafted him 68th. DK Metcalf, for example, went 2 picks ahead of him. So it was in a range where really good players get picked. Remember, when in 2019, they had the 2nd overall pick in the draft. And when you draft that high, you draft high in every round. Now, luckily, their first 2 picks, right? Nick Bosa, Deebo Samuel, also got their starting punter, Dre Greenlaw. Like, they had a good draft. But this guy had a chance to be maybe like a curveball to their offense a little bit, right? Ayuk, Deebo, just similar bodies, 6-foot athletes. Kittle obviously has been there for a while. We know what they're going to do on the ground, running the ball. But they didn't have even Kittle. Do you consider Kittle like a Gronk in the red zone? That's not really his style. This guy, I think, really would have added something, a wrinkle to their offense that we haven't seen since Kyle's been here. And now that's not going to be, is this guy, do you consider it a bust, even though it's not necessarily his fault? At the end of the day, he's not going to play a game in 2 years. Like, that's just,
I don't consider
it.
Yeah, I don't consider him a bust. I consider the pick at this point a bust because you use the 3rd-round pick on a guy that isn't going to play for 2 years. Now, what's unique about it is he missed the bowl game at Baylor coming out, first has some injuries at Tennessee, right? But like you said, he's 6'4", he's playing some running back. Matt Rule likes him. Okay, interesting. But goes to Baylor, has a knee procedure, like you said. That's what kept him out initially at camp. But then it was the back that cost him last year, and now this is an ACL. If this was back-to-back ACLs or back-to-back back injuries, maybe you'd have an easier time saying maybe it's just not going to happen for him. Is it that he's 50-50 him, and then in 2022 you get some version of what Kyle Shanahan wanted? I don't know. We'll see. Or maybe by the back end of 2021, maybe. But this is a guy that was healthy enough to get on the field last year during the preseason, right? This is not one of those bulky picks who was drafted injured and never made it to the field. Do you agree with that? This is a little different.
We saw him play. He ran over a guy, scored a touchdown, and everyone freaked.
Yeah. So you agree it's a little different than that. Some of those bulky picks.
Well, yeah, we saw a flash, and the flash was sweet. I think the problem, though, Guy, is I got a stat for you. 19 games in 5 years. That is Jalen Hurd's resume right now. And I think however you want to look at that, and we can make the excuses, knee procedures, broken backs, things that are random, whatever, 19 games, 5 years. Now, he's only been with the Niners for 2, so it's not like he was playing that much. He was a red flag coming out of college. And when you take a guy, I got no problem taking guys like this on the 3rd day, but when you have a really good pick in the 3rd round, which they did at the time, that it was a bold pick. It was, would you agree, a little bit of a swing for the fences pick?
Yeah.
He had changed positions. He was a running back. They thought he could be this versatile chess piece. And then, like you said, we saw it. And what we saw was sweet because remember in that game, Debo made a play too. It was like, God, they got Debo, Jalen Hurd. This is going to be cool. And I think Debo's a little bit of a freak injury. We saw him play a lot, right? I mean, the guy produced, I think, 10 catches in the playoffs. But this guy, I would lean like his Niner career already is in major jeopardy just because the way players come in and the turnover in rosters. And
yeah, it's not to say he can't come back, but if you tell me that he plays a full season for the 49ers or plays 8 games for the 49ers, I honestly would kind of surprise me at this point. Now, in fairness, when you say 19 games in 5 years, one of those years he missed because he transferred, so he sat out. But still, he went 7 games at Tennessee, sat out a year at Baylor, played 12 games at Baylor. Last year did not play a game. This year will not play a game. Next year is up in the air at this point. How many games he can play?
I even think, though, and you're right, you got to put context behind it. The transfer, though, was because he was going from running back to wide receiver, and it was part of, like, remember he said he didn't want to play running back because there was too much pounding on his body. There were just question marks.
And I think there had been, reading some of the quotes going back to that time, there had been some injuries at Tennessee that I think maybe he was unhappy with how they got handled. So
big falling out with the coaching staff there.
But the injuries were a part of that conversation. So we have a body of work now, and no one is saying, certainly we're not saying it's his fault by any stretch or that he can't be healthy beyond this year. Remember, once upon a time, Steph Curry couldn't stay on a basketball court and then got his ankles fixed. But these are not reoccurring ankle injuries like Steph, right?
You just compare Steph to Jalen Hurd?
No, I've compared players who are hurt to. I mean, Jalen's a little taller.
Yeah. Listen,
but the point is, at this point, John, I can't assume he ever gives the Niners anything.
And I think this now puts the magnifying glass on Dante Pettis' career. If he can't make the team, because I would have said this guy was going to make the team over him if he was healthy, right? Just because they're already down on Pettis. Pettis' career is in jeopardy. If you can't make this roster, because if I'm another team, even if I had a good grade on him, I'm like, wait, Kyle, who drafted you in the second round, has no wide receivers that are healthy that he's really produced with in the past right now in meaningful games, refused to keep you. Like, he's got to make the team now.
When you should have an advantage over Juwan Jennings. He hasn't been here. Tavon Austin, he's new here, right? Trent Taylor coming off an injury.
Been hurt. Yeah, I mean, the offense. I am not bullish on him making the team. Like, I'm really not, because it's going to be harder for guys in practice, right? Limited opportunities. I would say if it was normal year, preseason, that's one thing we'd be talking a lot about, right? Who's making plays in preseason games? Who are they throwing to? Who's being productive?
Right.
It's going to be hard to tell. And I think a lot of things that you can't quantify, who the coaches trust, who they feel good about in the meeting room, a guy if a game's tomorrow, who they feel confident that they can not just run plays with, but for. And I would say, just based on previous evidence, you would say he doesn't fall into that category, right?
Nope.
So he's got an uphill battle when he should be in the driver's seat, but he might have, just with all these injuries and all these new guys that don't know the playbook, he should be in the driver's seat. I think he's one of the more fascinating just conversations the next couple of weeks leading into that 53-man roster cutdown, right?
Yeah, I mean, no question. No question. And I think it's made more interesting by the Debo injury and the Hurd injury, because I think if both those guys were healthy, it might have been easy to look at this and go, the odds are against Dante Pettis, which is kind of crazy to say. I don't know that they were or weren't, but you know what I'm saying? Like,
I think they were, Guy, coming into camp. I think he was fighting
to say.
Yeah.
But this would make it look worse. It does open the door. Juwan Jennings is a guy we talked a lot about. We did a YouTube video, and when we talked about him when they drafted him, we said the odds are not in his. I mean, first of all, he's a 7th-round receiver. Just generally speaking, the odds are not in that guy's favor.
No preseason games to make plays, right?
Yeah, exactly. But maybe all of a sudden now the door is open. It's not a maybe. The door's definitely open.
You can't run Ayuk every play in practice, right? So they're going to be rotating guys. The good thing with wide receivers, because they run so much, unlike the third string right guard, like you don't get the linemen stay in there. Wide receivers rotate in and out. A guy like that, if he can make a couple flash plays, maybe on a given day, Kyle goes, let's give this guy 5 plays with the first team just as a third wide receiver set. To me, he's an interesting guy to watch, because people I saw on social media, like, was he kind of their backup plan for Jalen Hurd? I just think in late round picks, you just take the guy you think with the highest upside. I don't think Jalen even factors into that. But given that the situation now, he might directly benefit the most. They don't have a red zone target guy. I mean, Kittle's the closest thing, but really, I don't view Kittle like that. They would die for a red zone target wide receiver, a big body guy, throw fades to, throw jump box out, and that's. I mean, the video we did, it's sure one of his strengths, right?
Yeah.
High pointing balls, contested catches. I'm interested to him. Like who's to say that he couldn't beat out Dante Pettis? Now it's going to be hard. He doesn't know the offense, and the Dante starting basically at third base.
But I also think he's a rookie, right? And we've seen Dante now in several seasons. Does he have to be be better than Dante Pettis to beat him out, or just promising enough to make them think his ceiling is more immediately and higher and more immediately higher, right?
For as crazy as training camp typically is, you could argue these next 2 weeks, not just with the Niners, but all around the NFL, is one of the most pressure-filled 2 weeks of practice.
Well, I mean, when we watch Hard Knocks during a full season, guys are mad about 2 or 3 snaps they did or didn't get. Now, 10 padded practices? 10.
You better make it happen, guys.
I mean, how many catches are you really getting in 10 padded practices in 11 on 11?
But there's a good example, right? If you're Jawan Jennings and that one practice where Kyle saw a couple things the previous one and they give you a couple passes, you better do 2 things. Not screw up the assignment and catch the football, right? It's like you might get 2 balls thrown your way in the event that he goes, could we trust this guy? If that ball hits your hands, you touch it, you clutch it, guy. You touch it, you clutch it.
I like that. All right. So what do the Niners do now? Let us know down in the description below. And
like the video.
Yeah.